I have played Breath of the Wild. I have played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That reality is still sinking in. The review is still a long ways off. I really want to take my time with that one. So right now I just want to give you like my first impressions with the game. Just my first couple hours with the game, just how they made me feel. This is all going to be about just that first plateau that you start at in the game. And I'm not going to go into any story details. I mean, at this point I don't even know a lot of story details, but I am going to get into a lot of features, like how the game plays, what kind of stuff you do, what kind of items you get, and all that stuff. So if you're one of the types who only thinks that a story thing is a spoiler, then by all means watch on. If you are the me type, then do not watch this. Run away now. Go play the game. So first things first, wow. Just wow. Like right off the bat, first thing is just wow. You start at the game and just hearing a voice, actually voice acted, calling to you as you wake up, I wanted to cry. Knowing what I was getting into, the game immediately launches you into this real sense of magic and wonder. Everything is so immediately different. Like it's so different just so immediately that you're just like, oh my gosh, like it's a lot to take in. The game really just drops you in and lets you go. You wake up, put your pants on, run outside, and boom, you're there. You're done. Freedom. Do what you want. That's seriously how the game starts. This huge sense of freedom is the very first thing the game throws at you. It's just like, you are free. You are not held by anything. And it's immediately obvious that there's so much to do, because you're just looking around, seeing all this stuff, all these places you want to run to, all this stuff you want to interact with. Absolutely nothing forces you to advance the story, but you can if you want to, and you do want to, because you do want to know what's happening. You do want to figure something out. The game makes you want to advance the story, rather than someone telling you where you have to go and what you have to do. For basically as long as you want, you can just ignore what you have to do and just do whatever you want. This whole plateau is like an isolated area that you can't escape at first, so it is like a tutorial level at the beginning of a Zelda, but the thing is, you're not limited here. You're doing everything that you would be doing in the main game. You're running around and fighting guys and learning all the mechanics and all that stuff, so it doesn't feel like a tutorial. It's not like something like Twilight Princess, where it's like, you don't even get a sword for 2 hours, you know, or like most Zelda games where there's just this lengthy process at the beginning where like characters are coming up to you and going into cutscenes and telling you how to do stuff, and how do you Z-target and talk to a person, like every time. This is just, no, like, yeah, you can't escape to the rest of the game until you kind of figure out what to do, but you are playing the game. You're getting all the tools that you need. It feels real, it feels natural. It doesn't feel like a video game holding me still and being like, you can't leave yet until you know exactly how to play. So in the controls department, yeah, Link can jump now. I didn't know, I tried not to find out too much about this game. I didn't know if it was gonna be actually mapped to a button or just a command. No, it's a button. You have a jump button. You press a button and you jump. It blows my mind so much. I'm glad to see stamina back. I really like that about Skyward Sword. It seemed like a cool idea that didn't get utilized a ton in a lot of clever ways, but I'm happy to see it back because I did enjoy it. And here it seems to make a lot more sense, because not only can you run, and it's more important to be able to run and get away from guys, but you can climb. Did you know you can climb in this game? I saw Link climbing in like the trailers, but I'm like, oh, you probably have to like get the climbing shoes or something like that. But nope, you can just climb everything amazingly, perfectly. Like you just pick a rock or a wall or anything and you just climb it. It's just, and this again, you already feel this sense of freedom because of this opening area, and it's so big, and now it's just like, oh, and now you're not even limited by what has a ladder or a ramp, or like, oh, you have to use an item to get up. It's just like, no, not only can you go anywhere, you can climb stuff. Oh, hey, a big rock wall. Why don't you just climb it? Oh, a building. Why don't you just climb to the top? Like that again just makes you just like, oh my gosh, this whole world really is my playground. So one very interesting thing that surprised me is how every item in this game is an item. Like there are no freestanding hearts and rupees. You don't get stuff and it goes bling over your head. It's like everything is collected by grabbing. Even if you're grabbing a apple off the ground or a weapon or anything, like you gotta hit the button, you don't just collect it. And I love that. It gives a very fun, like tactile sense of actually getting something. And you're not like, oh, you gotta accomplish this series of tasks or whatever, and then a chest appears and you open it up and then you get the bow. It's like, no, you see a guy with a bow, you kill him, He drops his bow. You pick up the bow, you have a bow. Like, it's not like, oh, you gotta beat the forest temple first. No, it's just like, well, that's a bow, it's an item. If there's an enemy holding something, you kill him and you can get it. Every individual thing in the game is something that you can pick up and see and drop and do whatever you want with. And there are so many different types of items. This makes the game feel very modern. Like, it makes it feel way less like a Zelda and more like something like an Elder Scrolls or basically any other game in the world. It feels like they've really stepped up to the modern age. How, like, you're going through the menu and it's like, oh, you got this kind of club here and this kind of spear here and there's all these different kinds, and it's just like, cool, there's all this variety. It's not just like, you got your bow, you got your sword. It's like, oh, like, pick and choose whatever you want. These aren't progression items that are just like awarded to you for beating stuff. It's like, no, like, you just find them and you pick them up and you do it. It's really awesome. So I was surprised to see just how fast things break. I mean, they break really, really fast, and I'm sure this is the kind of thing that will change the further you go. You get better weapons that last longer. But right now, like, you use a club or whatever, and you just, like, the thing breaks in a couple hits. You're using up stuff constantly and grabbing it, and that's the kind of thing that it's like I could see someone being like, oh man, this is really stressful. I just want to swing stuff at guys. But, like, right away, it gives me this real sense of, like, accomplishment, of need, of, like, kind of like a good kind of stress of, like, oh man, I gotta be careful. I gotta really, like, know what I have and ration it out and make sure I'm collecting stuff so that I have enough. It's a very unusual feeling for a Zelda game, but it's so refreshing. Which, of course, brings me to my next point. This game is challenging. I'm really surprised by how hard this game is. Like, it's not even exactly that it's hard. I'm sure it will get hard. It looks like it really could, but it's more like you have to be careful. You just have to be you have to know your situation, and you can't just launch into a battle. You can't just be like, oh, there's some guys, run up and just start swinging your sword. You gotta be careful. Like, you get hurt really easily. You know, you gotta start learning how to, like, I'm really bad at it so far. I'm really bad at the battle, and that's not something I can ever say about a Zelda game before, because, oh, you have a sword and you see a guy, Z-target, and you just jump at him and just hit him a bunch. But not here. I'm like, they hit me and I'm trying to dodge and I'm doing a horrible job. Like, it actually feels like I'm a guy who just woke up and is like, how do I use a sword? I don't know. So I don't know if this is the sort of thing I'll get used to or what, but the battling feels kind of stiff. Like your movements are kind of smaller and more exact, and I think that's probably because you're not just this overpowered guy with a huge sword with a massive reach where you just blah, 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 blah. Like, this kind of makes it more tactical. It feels a little weird at first not being just so powerful, but it's very cool because it means you gotta try. You gotta be really aware of your enemy's movements, like just your jumps and your movements. You just move a lot less hugely, you know? Yeah, just more stiff. That's really the only way I can think to put it. And I do believe that was intentional, and it is pretty cool because it's making me like so many Zelda games before this have just been so easy. You just really just swing your sword at a guy. So it's fun because it's like, while I stink at it right now, I don't mind, because that's actually just making me excited to get better at it. Excited to just keep trying and actually learn how to fight and feel like I'm actually fighting. And more on the challenging side, again, there are no freestanding items, so that means no hearts. Like, a guy won't just poof out a bunch of hearts when he dies. You're not just breaking pots and finding hearts. Like, you are completely in control of your heart regeneration. You have to find and eat food. You have to collect things in order to heal yourself. So that, again, means you have to be so careful. It creates this need to just stay careful all the time and be completely aware of anything that can do damage to you. But it's incredibly fun and satisfying. It could be stressful, but instead they achieve this awesome balance where it's just fun. It's a challenge, a good kind of challenge. And a really fun thing about this game that makes it feel more like a real world is, even with the difficulty and even with like oh man, like I gotta be really careful, and there's these guys and I gotta, get food for myself. Even despite all that, the game is really peaceful, just like a game or a world really is. It doesn't really matter what's going on in it. If you're just out in the plains, it's peaceful. That's kind of how it is. The game so far is very quiet and understated, which is kind of how I felt about the E3 trailer. The whole thing, like, yeah, you're fighting monsters and stuff, but you're also just in this nice, pretty environment. And there's very little music. It's very quiet and low, and it doesn't come up a whole lot. Like, so far, maybe things will get more exciting later. I'm sure they will, in some parts at least. But right now, it's just very peaceful. It's very nice. So this game is surprising me wherever I go. Like, I'm really, really glad I did not watch a lot of trailers and stuff, because just every turn I take, it's just some surprise. It's just a wealth of surprises and just different features and stuff you can do and ways that the world works. One experience in particular kind of embodies all of this, and it was the first time in the game that I was just really, really satisfied with what it was giving me, beyond just that initial wonder of how to do things. Like I said, there is indeed a goal. Someone tells you what you should be doing. You don't have to do it if you don't want to yet, but of course, you know, any game is going to have a goal. You're supposed to go to these shrines. There's there's 4 of them, and so I'm making my way to one because I just want to. I want to see what they do and what I can get from them. And I'm heading for one, and I see that it goes too high up in the mountains, and things start getting cold. Like, I'm just like, oh man, what do I do? You walk into the cold, and there's this little temperature meter, by the way, which like shows like a hot and a cold side, and if the meter reaches too cold, then you start taking damage, and it's just like, whoa, like that's amazing. Like, this thing it's got a temperature gauge on it. So I'm looking up there, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't think I can do this. I don't know what I would do. I'm trained in a Zelda game to assume that I have to come back later, that I need an item, that is out of my control right now. Some robot lady or fairy or something needs to come and tell me what to do, how to get up here. But then I'm fighting some guys that are near the cold place, and there's these peppers. There's these peppers down on the ground, and you know, I grab them and I read the description, and it's just like, oh, it can be made into a thing that helps stave off the cold. And you can go into cold places. I'm like, oh, okay. That's cool. I can't just eat them by themselves, though. Okay, well, there's a cook fire here. Okay, what do I do here? I walk up to it. Okay, I'm not getting any prompt or anything, and so I play around with it for a while, and I really don't know what to do. I'm like, and again, I'm thinking I probably just have to come back later. Someone has to give me give me a tutorial or something, or a spoon so that I can cook. And so I'm playing around with the menu, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Oh, like, look at this. You can hold items. What does that mean? Okay, oh, okay, you can hold multiple ingredients at once. You can just put stuff in your hand. So then I exit out, and I'm just like holding them. You go up to the pot. Oh my gosh, look at that. You just throw it in now. You put it in your hand and you throw it in. I figured out how to cook all on my own. And it was so satisfying, because not only did I figure out how to cook, that was me also figuring out how to get up into the cold area. Accomplishing all of this, not only facing an obstacle that I thought I couldn't do, but doing it without somebody telling me how to do it, that felt amazing. It was this amazing, empowering feeling that I've not had in a Zelda game before. I've never had that kind of freedom to just figure something out. So like I said, there's these shrines, and these are awesome because you have this great big overworld, and it's like, okay, well, what is Zelda? Zelda is going out on adventures, and it's also puzzling. How do you put a lot of puzzles out here in the world? These shrines are the perfect way to do it. You go into a shrine, and there's a series of puzzles, and they're these little like self-contained things, and they're awesome because it looks like they're everywhere. And a really interesting thing here is how this game gives you what seems like most, at least, of your items right off the bat. Like, I like progression in a Zelda. That was one of the things that was slightly disappointing about Link Between Worlds, how it was super open, and it's fun to be open, but I like the sense of progression of unlocking new areas. So it's definitely interesting that this game, it seems to give you just a bunch. Like, every time you beat one of the shrines in this tutorial, you get in fact, you don't even have to beat it. That's another interesting thing. You walk into the shrine, you go up to the thing, it's like, here's an item. Whoa, you mean I can just have it? Yeah, you can just have it. Why? Well, so you can beat this shrine. And you beat all the shrines, and suddenly you have all the items, and just that, it is very empowering. I'm a little bit sad to see the progression go, but I'm sure this game will come up with other ways of making the game a progressive thing, and even if not, the game world seems to be so big and amazing that I really don't even mind, because it's cool to have my whole tool set right now. Like, it kind of just makes me all the more excited to just go out knowing that I have this plethora of just like ways to interact with the world. And of course, them giving you those items is another reason you want to hunt down the shrines. It's not someone saying, you need to go do this, and because that's how you get out of the tutorial, because that's how you move forward with the game. It's like, take all the time you want. There's tons of stuff to play with. This whole place is just a playground, but you're like, I want to find the shrines. I want the items. It's this reward. It's an actual tangible reward. The reward is not just moving forward. The single thing in this game so far that I seem to have mixed feelings about is the graphics. Character models look really nice. The lighting is really nice. Obviously, this is it's kind of like Wind Waker, but a little bit more. You know, the character models aren't little chibi guys. There's a lot more like detail and stuff, but it is that kind of like cell shaded, colorful kind of thing. The problem really is the landscape, because you've got the character models and stuff for all this nice little cell shaded thing, but then everything else, it kind of looks muddy. Just looking out in the distance, it doesn't look as pretty as I think I would like. And I do understand that it's probably because these are not pre-rendered mountains that they were able to just make beautiful art for and stick them out there and make them look as pretty as they wanted. These are real mountains. I assume that anything that I can see, I can go to. So it has to be an actual thing that is rendered, real rocks and stuff like that. So I definitely get it. It's just a little bit of a mixed bag. It's kind of like the game is trying to hit that colorful, stylistic thing, but then like the bits of realism kind of get in the way. So the stylistic thing makes the realism look a little weird, and the realism makes the stylistic thing look a little weird. So it's not a big deal. And overall, the game is pretty. It just muddier than I expected, mostly just when looking out. Rendering all this stuff in the distance all the time also means like little bits of like pop in and stuff, so it's not super duper seamless, but I really don't mind that much because, you know, the art style is really that amazing, and overall it looks really nice. The lighting definitely helps, like the lighting and the sky and the clouds overhead and stuff really pull it all together and give it a nice little sheen. That really does make it look pretty good. My last impression of Breath of the Wild is that it is obvious that this is something special. Like, it's so clear so early on that this is going to be one of the best games I've ever played. And not just based on the hype that I had for the game. It's basing it on real concrete stuff, on the features that the game has already showed me, on the idea that everywhere I go, I'm still being surprised. Just on the stuff that I know about the game now, it's just like, this is amazing. This is so engrossing just right away. It really pulls you in. Rather than just, well, it's a Zelda game, so I expect it to be great, so I'm pulled in because it's Zelda. It's like, no, like if I had never played a Zelda game before, I would probably be almost as amazed and engrossed, because it just, everything it throws at you, it really just draws you in. It constantly beckons you further and further into the game. It makes you just go crazy wanting to get off this plateau and just explore this big, massive world that it just teases the entire time. You can just see everything out in the distance, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I want to go out there so bad. And you know that you will, so you keep playing, just as I'm sure I will keep playing for a long time to come. I mean, look at this thing. Look at this. Look how big it is. Yeah, it's big. So that's how I feel about the game so far. This entire time I've been recording this, I've just been dying to get back to the game, so, get out of here. Go on, get. I got some Zelda in to do.